I didn't plan it. It was just this spur of the moment thing. And I thought I'd come on and check in, and then I do plan on getting back to daily devotions. I haven't forgotten about y'all. Life has been crazy. So I want to back up to go forward. In the last 2 months, I've done a ceremony, and it was amazing. And then we had Samhain, and Samhain this year was very impactful for me. And here comes Astra. She's going to join the party. And Samhain was very impactful for me this year because I did a ceremony for the first time since, well, 2011, probably, a big one, where I went out and I camped overnight, and I had a wonderful person with me. She was a wonderful guide. She had done all of the prep work that I hadn't been able to do. And my body's older, and it's in less good shape than it was last time I did it, so I'm so glad that I had her with me. And then I found out that my biological father had liver cancer, and no warning at all, and he passed. And so I went through another ceremony. I did both new moon, and then I did my ancestors honoring ceremony. And also in the last 2 months, I've had a chronic sinus infection. I've had an upper respiratory infection. I've had a lot happen. And then the election this week. So there's a lot in the world, and I know that I am not the only one that is experiencing a great deal. I've known of 3 people actually who've had loved ones pass in just the last week. So this has been a very significant turn, and I knew because my guides had told me a while ago, hey, you know, you need to shift back to the Samhain orientation on your calendar. Here's your learning cookie, you know. So one of the things about today is that the moon is in Capricorn, and my bio dad was a Capricorn. And so that was one of the impetuses to come on and do daily devotions today, because I wanted to honor him. And then also Montana achieved statehood on the 8th of November, 1889. And there's an interesting thing about what happened in the election this last couple days, is that Montana was one of the few states that populist vote. Women came out and they said, wait a minute, I want a right to my body. And I want to honor all of the women and all of the men who supported their women, who also believe that women are, I don't know, intelligent, smart, have the right to their own humanness bodies, you know. And I want to say, good job. Good job for all of us who stepped out and said, yes, we're going to vote for that. I don't know. I haven't done the research. I don't know how many states put it in their constitution, but good job. I am hoping that that protects the women in the state of Montana from outside machinations and legislations. I'm hoping. Again, we have to stay vigilant. The other thing that I wanted to come on and do today in daily devotions, this is not all politics. This is the spiritual side of life, right? And this is a card I drew at my Samhain ritual. So the card that I drew came from the Medicine Heart Oracle by Alana Fairchild, and it's number 32, Wings, Blood, and Bone. And this was a Samhain card that I drew. I drew it at Samhain. You are spiritually outgrowing a difficulty in your life. Continue to act with trust, moving through unfamiliar territory, and your evolution into a new and less problematic era is assured. You will instinctively know when and how to take your leap of faith. You will recover from any temporary upheaval involved in this process swiftly, and you will need not fear it. The patterns of the past have no power over you. Your journey may not always be understood by others because you are able to thrive through unconventional approaches to life, where others may not be so bold. There is a spiritual insight that you will soon access, which will help you see things in a new and more positive light, bypassing potential pitfalls and continuing successfully on your authentic life path. So when I drew this at Samhain, I was a little like, why did this card come up? And it could be considered like, oh, okay, wings, blood and bone, Samhain, ancestral, ceremonies, harvest season, things like that. But I knew it went a little bit deeper. I actually I've kept this card out ever since Samhain. I haven't put it away because I knew it was a little bit more significant. But this is one of the first paragraphs in this particular read. Bizarre and beautiful winged flying fish is a potent shamanic soul medicine for radical creative evolution that opens up new worlds of experiences. The flying fish can leap high and glide swiftly through the air before gracefully returning to the waters. Scientists believe this evolved as a protective mechanism so the fish could avoid predators. This movement pattern holds the medicine empowerment for spontaneously propelling oneself beyond the reach of negativity. Such a radical and unexpected divergence is an expression of protective instinct, intelligent, removing you from potential harm on a path that has become dangerous due to negativities. Flying fish can symbolize the leap of faith that arises suddenly and takes you out of your comfort zone, and yet protects and uplifts us. We return refreshed and empowered to continue our authentic path on the other side of the leap. So I'm going to come back to this card a couple times, I think, but one of the things is the fierceness of radical creative evolution. And I'm going to go back to a previous topic. So I've talked about my papa several times in daily devotions. You can go back to old stuff. There's over 365 days of this. I know I've talked about papa before. My papa was the most gentle giant you've ever met, okay? And yet, if he needed to be heard, if he needed to be seen, if he needed to protect, if he needed to do something physiologically strong, he could do that. But he was a very gentle, laughing, happy person, just a happy person in general. And one of the things that over and over and over in my childhood, because children are assholes. I was one too. It's just the way they are. They go through the asshole stage. And by nature, I think all children go through that space of trying to figure out how to self-preserve, right? How to navigate the world, figure out who they are. And one of the things that I grew up in was a Republican, quote unquote, household. And one of the things that I would ask my dad often, like, well, what is your politics? And he would say, well, I'm a registered Republican. And I'm like, okay. And he would never answer my question, right? Like, why are you that, right? It was always, it's not about the political party. It's about who is the best person to vote for, who has the better morals, ethical code, who has the best track record for treating people like human beings, who has the best track record for civil rights, who has the best track record for women's rights, who has the best track record for all of these things. And economy, was also in there 100%, but he was in the military. And one of the things about being a daughter, granddaughter, great-granddaughter of some of politics and the military, okay? So my great-grandfather was an immigrant on one side of my family. He was involved in the South Dakota legislature. He was involved in World War I. My grandfather was in World War II in the Korean conflict. My uncles were all in Vietnam, Korean conflict, etc. My dad, same thing. So when you grow up, when I grew up in that environment, it would have been very easy generationally to pass on political ethos or militaristic ethos. It would have been very easy for them to do so. But none of them did that. I have faults, of course. There are things our families do great and are things that our families do not well. But one of the things I will always be extraordinarily grateful for is the conversations about how to be involved. Now, my bio mom, it was a different conversation. So I'm leaving that over here in this little bucket over here. But my dad and I had long conversations about the ethos of what a democratic republic was. You know, he was the first person that handed me the Federalist Papers and said, here, read this. If you want to know about politics, you have to understand your civics. And I still didn't understand. I'm still struggling with some of the laws. I'm still struggling with some of the processes. Some of the things don't make sense to me. They're not fair. And I would point that out to my dad a lot, like it's not fair. But as he used to say, if you don't like it, it's your right to become involved. And yet, I had an experience at one point in my childhood where I was told you should probably never become a politician because you're too honest, right? Like, be involved, but then don't be involved. Yeah, ironically, it wasn't Papa that said that to me, but he also didn't contradict the person that did say that to me. The shamanic soul medicine for radical creative evolution. We no longer have the privilege as women to not be involved. We don't. We no longer have this privilege. And the reason we do not have the privilege to not be involved is that something has radically changed in our public perception of the balance between good moral, ethical behavior and what we think we want politically out of our leaders. Economy, inflation, trade, things like that. Like the money piece versus the moral, ethical, communal, right action of doing the right thing, so to speak, in allowing the First Amendment to be a thing. Free speech, okay? And there's a disjunct between our Constitution, our amendments, and what people are actionably doing right now. And I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to do this as a call to action. And interestingly enough, if you go back to some of the other daily devotions from back in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, I talk about being active. And I understand that there is a lot on your plate. I have a lot on my plate. And I talk also a lot about self-care on this platform. And one of the things about self-care is that self-care is important, and that's why we should not be looking at one person, one president, I'm going to use that word loosely, to pull us out of what's going on. We no longer have the privilege to hope that the person that gets elected is going to be the good person that will listen to their populace and listen to the needs of the people. We no longer have that privilege because we have just lost it. So This is a call to action. If you're unhappy, if you feel unsafe, if you are dissatisfied, band together in your communities, find where your community is, connect in. I recommend an organization called League of Women Voters. They allow men to join too. It's called League of Women Voters. Do you know how long this organization has been around? It's been around since a long time ago, turn of the 18th to 19th century. And it's been around to bring equal rights to all people. Now, it's had not necessarily the greatest track record with racism. It's not always had the greatest track record for a lot of things, but it's gotten better. And I will say that that's an organization I'm okay belonging to. They've done a lot of work. Go on to their national platform, League of Women Voters. They have some amazing information there. There should be a league somewhere near you. In the state of Montana, they were the ones who brought the last constitutional convention forward to at least rewrite the Constitution so it was a little bit more equitable, okay? They sent somebody to Washington over and over and over again to make sure that the rights for women to vote was passed in the federal government. So the League of Women Voters has a long history in Montana. There are chapters across the Montana and the United States become involved. We no longer have the privilege to no longer be involved. If you are a young person and you are not sure where to start, it's all overwhelming, your vote doesn't count, guess what? League of Women Voters has been adamant and passionate about one vote, one person, and getting rid of the Electoral College for actually quite some time now, because the inequity there is palpable, okay? The other thing that this card was a big show for me at Samhain is something I didn't understand when I pulled the card. Such a radical and unexpected divergence is an expression of protective instinct, intelligently removing you from potential harm on a path that has become dangerous due to its negativities. This card said, hey, negativity is going to overarch, but don't stick your head in the sand. Come together in your communities. We don't need one leader. We haven't. Our world has shifted. We have all grown up in this version of each person's vote should count. Now let's make it a real thing. And to do that, that means all of us have the responsibility to stand in our power. Get involved with your local city councils. Get involved with your neighborhood communities. Don't be the one person leading. Get people to support you and pull together. Everybody needs a support network and everybody needs community. Nobody should be doing it alone. We don't need a radical, and I'm going to use this awful term, we don't need a radical cowboy. We don't need a radical cowgirl. We don't need Wonder Woman. We need a community that comes together, that supports democracy, and supports each person being able to be involved without being punished. A single mom who's a hairdresser should be able to run for city mayor or city council or president just as much as the guy who's running the local spa store, right? Like, everybody should be able to run and be involved, and it should not require millions of dollars to do so. That is not equitable. The other thing is, we have technology. We have this amazing technology. Let's be radical about this, right? You can take technology and you can plug in an independent server and you can send a poll out to every single one of your electoral voters that's in your area. Say you want to run for your ward's representative on the city council. You can get a polling of every single person that is able to vote. You can get feedback from them. Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we asking? Why aren't our elected representatives getting in touch with us? I've never been polled. I've had people come to my door and ask me who I'm going to vote for. None your business. I would like the actual people who are running for office ask me questions. Why don't you do Facebook Lives? They come on YouTube and say, hey, I have to do YouTube Live. Everybody who's in Ward 1, come join me. Have a discussion. Ask me questions. Why not? Isn't that radical? Well, isn't that too small? No, that's not too small. You have to start local. You have to start with the people that live in your communities. I have no idea who my city reps are. I have never met them. I've seen them on commissioner meetings. I go online and I watch their meetings and I'm baffled. How the hell did you get voted in? Who the hell are you? Right? We no longer have the privilege to not be involved. We no longer have that privilege. We all have to be involved. And it doesn't matter how small your involvement is. Join League of Women Voters. A lot of those groups are extremely involved in local discussions. They're involved in local communities. There are a lot of organizations. There are some pride organizations that are very active. There's a couple of them here in Montana. Go to your local library, ask them. If your library hasn't been completely subsumed by a state government, I would say that that would be easy. But again, we no longer have the privilege of not being involved. We need to be more involved. And that means dragging your kids to things. That means getting your kids involved. That means getting your whole family involved. That means no one has the privilege to be silent and to not be involved. And I say this from someone who has had a rough 2 months, a very rough 2 months. And I've still been involved. I've gone to my local league meetings. I've done a little bit on the side. You've seen it. I posted some reels when I had some energy to do so. Hopefully my antibiotics will take effect soon, the new ones, and I can get off my butt and get out in the world again. But this is my pitch, right? I sound like a voice behind the curtain, but I'm involved. I am involved. I'm involved in several platforms. I'm involved in having a voice. We no longer have the privilege to be silent. And this card shows us that we can do that. We can take that leap. We can recover from the upheaval, and we don't have to fear the upheaval. I totally get why everybody's afraid. Part of me is not afraid because I've seen it coming. I'm not surprised. I can always hold out for hope, but I'm not surprised. And with that, that means all of us have to step forward. We no longer have the privilege to not be involved. So find your niche, find your community, become involved. If you need a safe place, it's here. Montana has passed the ability that a woman's right to her body and choices are here in the state of Montana. It has passed. It should become part of our amendments soon. I still don't know all that process. I'm doing a fair amount of research. We have an epidemic of a violence against women right now. The numbers are up. They're up everywhere across the United States. It's there. I kind of wondered when I started my master's for social work last year. I thought, what kind of craziness are you doing, Red? You do not have time in your plate to do this. And yet the universe lined up so that I could do it. I didn't even know that's what I wanted. I'm still not sure if that's what I want. But you know what I do want? I want social equity. I want justice. I want each person's voice to be heard, and I want people to feel safe. And I can't remain silent. I can't. You know, Papa was not a social warrior. He was not. Not out in the world like you think of a social warrior. I don't even think he ever did any protests. I mean, he never talked about anything like that. But you know what he did do? He lived life, and he traveled the world, and he asked people for their stories. He asked people for their stories, and he listened. And he would tell me those stories. And he lived life fully. And he had the most magnificent stories. He's the best storyteller I knew. And they were always real stories, real people's lives. And never met somebody who didn't like my dad. I'm sure there were. I just never met them. Maybe I was sheltered, probably. Never met an animal that didn't like my dad. He had a light about him. And that light is no longer here. But that legacy is here. Because that legacy lives in me, and it lives in my children. And we no longer have a privilege to be silent. Because every story matters. Every journey is important. And we're not here to make our parents proud. I'm not here to make Papa proud. I've never been here to make Papa proud. He believed it. I believe it. My ancestors believed it. That our job is to make the world a better place for our descendants, and we have lost that. We've lost our way somewhere. It's not about making mom and dad proud. It's not about making grandpa and grandma proud. It's about making the world a better place for my children and my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, for my descendants. We no longer have the privilege to be silent. This is just part of the card from Samhain. There's 4 more pages, I think, 3 more pages of writing, and I think I'm gonna finish the card. I'm gonna read it to you over the next couple days that I come live. But this is not about politics. This is about your soul and your spirit and your life out in the world. And we no longer have the privilege to be silent. We need to come together as community, and the ache and the fear so many people are feeling is real because we held out hope without action. And the reality is that the party that won, if you want to talk about it, the party that won, they're better at being nasty. They're better at being forceful. And there is a analogy that those that have good moral, ethical stances are weak. And that is not the case. It's been proven over and over and over again. But we allowed this to happen by not being involved. And we don't need a leader. We don't need a powerful Democrat at the top. I'm not even a Democrat. I'm not even a Republican. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Green Party. I'm not a moderate. I'm not in anything. I'm a human being, and I'm a woman who happens to be living in this world, watching people fall apart. I'm not falling apart. I'm very sad that my papa died, but I'm not falling apart because you know what, guys? I'm involved. I'm learning to be involved. I'm learning how to be involved because I can't be involved in the traditional way. The paradigm has to shift, and it shifts with us. If you can only donate an evening a week, okay. If you can only be the person that's doing YouTube videos, do that. If you're the person who can write letters, do that. If you're the person who can put signs up, do that. There's so many different ways to be involved. But you can't stand silent anymore. You cannot abstain in protest. Because that's not protesting. That is allowing the bully to win the room. We have to shift the paradigm in how we become involved. And I don't know what that looks like. If it looks like me getting on a ballot and running for city commission, great. I don't know where I'll fit that in. I don't know what that looks like. Politics terrify me. And yet, I'm involved because I no longer have the privilege as a woman of privilege. And let's look at this. Let's look at this really realistically. I come across as a female, white, middle-class person. Okay, that's the image. Great. That's not the reality. There's a lot in that reality you do not understand. I am queer, asexual, bisexual, pick a queer undercurrent. I am all of that. I am in a relationship with a man, yes. So from the outside, it looks like I just look like every other white woman, and I could very easily step behind that paradigm and hide. Yeah, no, I ain't doing that. Can't, because they're gonna come for me. I am loud. I am neurodivergent, which means I have a disability. I have two disabilities, 3 disabilities, depending on how you count. Come on, Astra. I'm pagan, or alternatively religiously affiliated, ain't Christian. I have things that make me different. And many of my friends are transgender, gay, queer, bi, all the things. We have to have presence. We cannot be silent anymore. And this card says it. This card says, wings, blood, and bone. The flying fish will and can leap high and glide swiftly through the air before gracefully returning to the water. Flying fish symbolize the leap of faith that arises suddenly and takes us out of our comfort zone and yet protects us and uplifts us. We can do this. We can't do it alone. We have to do it together. So, kind of a preachy daily devotional, guys, but this is the card that I've had out since Samhain. Well, I have another one. Where'd it go? I have 2. Actually, I have 2 that I drew at Samhain, and I'm going to go over both of them over the next week or so. And we're in Capricorn. The moon is in Capricorn today. And today is the anniversary of Montana becoming a state. And Montana just, by populist vote, 75% said yes, women have the right to their own bodies. So let's celebrate that win and use that as the catalyst to get you moving. Become involved. You no longer, I don't care who you are watching this, you do not have the privilege of being silent anymore. If you're here, if you're watching it, you no longer have the privilege to be silent. It's scary. I'm terrified. And Astra's looking at me with the most lovely, loving eyes. Oh, but Mama, it's okay. Yes, baby girl. Yes. She believes in you too. But remember, it's not one person out leading the charge. We're all doing it together. I can't do this alone. My last 2 months have been so full. Just getting out of bed in the morning and doing my homework assignments relatively on time is an accomplishment. But you know what? I have this amazing partner. I have friends. I have community. I'm not doing it alone. I'm not doing it alone, and neither are you. So, get involved. Find a way to be involved. League of Women Voters is a good place to start. I will come up with more, and I will start sharing resources. I just spontaneously did live this morning. So, I hope you all have a beautiful day. Take this card to your heart today. Wings, blood, and bone. Wings we went over today. Wings. Find your wings. We all have them. We all have them. Blessed be. I truly send you blessing and strength. And I will see you in prayer. Blessed be.